Nails on wood. A loud snapping noise accompanied the nails breaking. Both sounds bored into Taryn's heart. 12 times. Nora's fingernails had broken 12 times.
"Brother,"
rasped the voice.
"brother, please. I'm so hungry. Please."
Taryn's sister, trapped in a box on his back, weighed nothing compared to the torment of her whispers. Only the clouded stars gave Taryn the light he used to stumble through the woods. Branches scraped his arms, but all he could hear was the nails scraping and the endless whispering. The village was bathed in black shadow. The old church was made of withered stone. It still held scars from the Norse raids 400 years ago. Stepping onto the church grounds, Nora screamed and thrashed violently in her box. Taryn unslung the box from his back and settled it down outside of the holy ground. Ragged panting came from the box. "Hush, sister. You'll feel better soon, I promise." He stood and strode into the church. On one of the old creaky wooden benches, a middle-aged man slept. His brown robes and shaved head displayed his dedication to God. "Father Adam," Taryn said softly, putting a hand on the older man's shoulder. "Huh? Taryn, what is it, my boy?" "Father, my sister appears possessed." The father roused himself. "How so?" "She craves blood, fears the sun, and the church." Let me have a look at her." Soft crying could be heard from within the box. "Nora, can you hear me?" asked the father.
"Father Adam, please let me out. Brother has gone mad and has locked me in this box for days. I'm starving. Please, Father Adam."
The father grunted as he shoved the crate over into the holy ground.
"Father, please!"
Nora screamed. The box shook as her desperation peaked. Pained, Taryn swiftly hefted the box and gently settled it where it had rested before. "I see," said Adam. "I will pray on this matter, but I fear such an affliction must be dealt with by a true exorcist. All I can suggest is to travel to the cathedral in Marindel." "Thank you, Father. And, Father, will you please take care of my family?" It was too painful to admit the kind of care they would need. "Of course, Taryn." As Taryn left, a man on horseback came thundering through the village. A dull lantern showed the horse the ground and glinted off the rider's breastplate. He was cloaked in a thick black that billowed in the wind of his ride. Its back held a white crest of a hawk killing a snake. The man's features were dark, despite his apparent youth. A massive sword was strapped to his back. Its long grip punched through his wild black hair. The night was blind to the peasant boy and his strange box. It seemed impossible. But it was worse when the scratching stopped. Nora's whispering and scratching had kept him awake at night. So when darkness still held the world in mystery, and she stopped, he panicked. Taryn leapt to the box. He tore at the bolt and the lid. Nora slumped out of the box. Her flesh had withered around her bones till her dress hung limply. Her red-pink eyes glowed in the dark like an animal's, but looked at nothing. Her long black hair, usually so straight and neat, was a tangled mess about her. None of the rations he had shoved into the box as she slept during the day had been eaten. She had been drinking blood when he found her. He didn't hesitate in pulling his knife out and slitting open his own palm. At the smell of the blood, she reached weakly for his hand. He presented it to her. Her dry lips pressed to his palm. The pain fled. Cold crawled up his arm. His head became light. Taryn woke to Nora crying.
"Lock me in my box. Lock me back in my box."
The Marindel Cathedral was the largest building Taryn had ever seen. He left Nora asleep in the care of his innkeeper. He would need some coins soon, lest he starve along with her. The cathedral was composed of grand, sweeping arches, murals of colorful stained glass, and statues from barely a foot tall to life-sized. An undeniable masterwork made for the sole purpose of worshiping God. Taryn could not but stare with his mouth agape. Regaining a small portion of his composure, he wandered within. The inside was somehow more impressive, with its height brushing, yet not trespassing on heaven, with its grand murals of angels, animals, and man, made with such vibrant paint upon the cathedral's distant ceiling. Grand columns that held buttresses and arches. 100 people sparsely populated the benches and halls. After getting over his awe enough to speak, he found a priest to consult. "Brother, I have a private matter I require consultation in," Taryn said. "What bothers you?" "My sister is possessed. She hates holy ground, the sun, and requires the blood of men to live." "A troubling curse indeed. I believe you should visit one of the great warrior houses. The Helsings, Spell Towers, Lowhorns, Thornwoods, or the Wallows. These lords specialize in exorcism and solving what curses you. They have emissaries here in the church." The priest showed Taryn to the emissaries. The young men each held banners at the ready, along with paper, wax, and seals. A crimson banner with a black trim, upon it a black dog. A light blue banner with a golden bell tower, within a silver bell. A quartered banner of green and brown, with a black bull with its head low to the ground. A green banner with a black tree. And the last, a black banner with a silver hawk killing a snake. Recognizing the hawk and snake, Taryn approached that emissary. "I've been told your house can aid in exorcism." "Certainly. The Lord's House Wallow are excellent exorcists."
Will this take coin? I have little, but I'm strong and can work hard."
"You may request to join the house as a man-at-arms or a squire, given your physique." Taryn perked up. Anything. I can do anything. All right, given your lack of resources, I would suggest traveling to the Wallow Lands on foot. Terran's shoulders slumped. How far? 2 to 3 days. Terran tried to make it work, but Nora was going to starve. How do I get there? He stumbled again. His knees quaked as he struggled to keep the pace he had set for himself. With no loot to bear, it would have been easy, but now he needed to get Nora over 50 miles of terrain in about a day. It had taken 3 for her to collapse before. That had been a day before, and he doubted that his blood had sated her hunger. 2 days was more than he was willing to risk. He had left immediately. Now it was dark. He ignored the scratches on his hands, knees, and elbows. Gritting his teeth against the ache of his legs, in between his gasping breaths, he crawled back to his feet. In the light of dawn glimmered a small whitewashed castle with a small outer wall. A town was crouched around the base of the hill where it rested. A river turned to the west of the keep. Large, well-trimmed bushes decorated the town, along with grand oak trees. The people were slowly starting to wake. Terran stumbled a final time. The village was a short stroll away now, but his position at the edge of the woods meant he was too far for anyone to notice. On his knees, he found himself unable to rise. He was so close. He could make out the snake and the hawk on the banners, but he couldn't keep himself on his hands and knees. He struggled a hand forward. Nora's scratching hand stopped. Was it because she was dead, or because she slept from the risen sun? His fingers gripped dirt and stone. His teeth gritted as he dragged himself on his stomach a few feet forward. Then the next hand. His legs were done, but not his hands. "The hell in God's name are you doing, boy?" A deep voice came from above. The sun shone above the man's head. His horse stood above Terran. It was the man Terran had seen in his village. Terran caught his breath. "My sister was possessed. I fear she'll starve, as she takes no food or drink." "So that's what's in your box?" "Yes, my lord." The man's eyes sharpened. "I am Sir Carl of House Wallow." "No, lord." The knight got off his horse and dragged the box off of Terran. Then, taking a moment to brace the box and get his hands under it, shoved the box onto the horse. "You come from Waterborough?" "Near enough," Terran gasped. The weight was gone, and with it he started to get to his feet. The man gave him a hand. "You can walk?" asked the man. Terran moved his legs. Yes, sir." "Good. It's just a little farther. We're going to that manor over yonder." The knight pointed to a large wattle and daub building with a stone tower and a great many windows. "That's Lord Wallow's summer house. Castle's a bit warmer in the winter without all the windows." "I see." "Boy," Carl started, I have to apologize now. He stopped again, a great pain racking his youthful face. "I was unable to catch the creature that did that to your family. He lost me a few days' ride from your home." "Have they been buried?" "They should be now." Terran looked pained. "That's a relief." Carl brought Terran to an empty cellar. As he did, he told one of the servants of the manor that he would be using it. The servant brought a chair, fresh water, bread, ham, and cheese. "Eat, Terran," said Carl as the knight rested on the far wall. "Thank you," Terran said, before wolfing down the food. When he was done, Carl told him the truth. "I can't save your sister." "What?" "She's a vampire. A permanent change has been made to her body. Death is the only way to cure her from her torments." Terran looked at his scraped hands. They hadn't stung before. It was a cold night. Coldest since the start of fall. Robberies had been reported in the area, and Mother had me fetch a strong box from town. The young man looked down in shame. I was late because of my visit to Madeline, the tavern keeper's daughter. So it was dark by the time I walked back. It wasn't unusual. There was starlight to see by, and I had walked the path many times. As I came upon our hovel, I noticed the door had been torn from its hinges and tossed 4 paces away. I heard sobbing inside. My 4 youngest siblings were dried husks, and Mother was gone. Nora stooped in a corner, vomiting blood, sobbing, and leaning down to desperately drink it. Confused, I reached out to her and spoke her name. She whirled and pounced. She moved with a sudden and explosive force, and I was off balance. We tumbled to the floor, and she ended up pinning me. Her face was a mess of tears, blood, and drool. The slobber fell from her mouth, uncontrolled, as she shook. I threw her off, surprised to find her as light as ever. She was stunned after slamming into the wall, and I crammed her into the strongbox. Then a 5-day hike over nearly 150 miles. Little sleep with a heavy burden. Damn Viking blood, Carl thought. Terran was already a match with him in strength, and surpassed him in height. A proper diet and training would make the boy a monster of a man. "How about you go get some sleep, Terran?" asked Carl. "You don't have to see this." Terran stared at his hands. Then he slowly rose. I'll ask one of the servants about where to rest." Carl sat there for long hours thinking. Terran's will was near enough gone. Would the boy even take to training? He didn't seem to think of vengeance, only of his sister. His thoughts went in circles. A sound came from the box. Panicked breath and grunts of pain, poorly hidden. Carl rose and strode to the box. He drew his sword and, holding the massive two-hander in one hand, opened the box. He snapped to a wrath stance, prayers running through his mind. Skin and bone flopped limply to the ground. A loose nightgown nearly fell from the girl. Her bones strained against her skin. A finger twitched. Guilt stayed Carl's hand. It was a monster in the form of a starving little girl. Every part of his humanity kept him from finishing her off. Hazy, starving eyes glanced toward him. The girl smiled, closing her eyes. Carl's heart shattered. He let the sword fall. He crouched over the body. A hand lifted her face. Her eyes fluttered open. Confusion warped her face.
"Kill me,"
she whispered. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm too weak of heart." He moved his fingers till only the tips held her chin. He still held the blade in one hand. He slid that sword over his palm. Nora tilted her head away. "It's all right." She hesitated, but still gave in to her thirst. Taryn woke to a loud thud. His entire body ached. "We got 2 to 3 days. Ever ride a horse?"
"No, sir. We only had chickens and a cow on the farm."
Carl grunted, signaled for Taryn to follow. The thud. It took a moment for Taryn to realize what the thud had been. A strong box. It was strapped crudely with leather instead of the rope Taryn had carried it with. He hefted the box and plodded after Carl. "Eat this." Carl tossed bread crust stuffed with meat and cheese. Taryn began eating. His muscles were already loosening. "Where are we going?" "The Wallachian Empire. The place is crawling with vampires. Other monsters, too, though I doubt they're human enough for our purposes."
"Our purposes, sir?"
"To save your sister, Taryn."
I hope everyone enjoyed If I Wrote Demon Slayer. If you did, leave a like, comment, subscribe if you wish, and ring that cursed little bell.
Germany. Hungry. Hungry.